Expected to make it, so
Logical Raptors fanatic.
shoot trying to miss. Like every shot
Logical Raptors fanatic.
try to make it, so I was not surprised.
A fun guy. Obviously,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
love the game of basketball. I mean, it's just more question you have to ask me in order for me to tell you about.
Logical Raptors fanatic.
I just can't give you a whole spiel. I don't even know where you're sitting at.
No
Project Truth.
has contacted me, and I see all the stuff that, like, you guys see. I dream like they dream. Yeah. Yeah, I want,
Logical Raptors fanatic.
you know. Yeah, so they keep dreaming. I dream too.
Salute, real ones. Project Truth always. Mike G back here with Logical Raptors fanatic, and our part 3 on Thaddeus Young mentor files. We're gonna continue today going over his more prime years in Indiana, and then we're gonna also be pinning in and keying in on his journey and having the context for the finale and the context to what we're talking about here. But let's definitely start it off with the main boss man laying out what this series is adding context to.
4 or 5 years. Yeah, how long, man? Even since Philly, man. It's crazy. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Welcome,
Everything
man.
was smooth.
Everything was good?
Yep.
Yeah, good.
Smooth came in and handled all my paperwork and stuff. So, and all that's good.
Bringing in a player like Thaddeus Young, we wanted a veteran type player, a bird rights type player that came and bridged, helping our young guys both in the locker room and on the court. An athlete that can still play, still does the things that I think are very important to how we play and our organization. And the leadership of the court I think, is significant because Thaddeus brings so much energy, good spirit. I think he'll help the young players. I've known him for a long time, and I'm happy that we finally got him here. We looked at different scenarios, but you guys know I'm not too big on the trade deadline. To me, overall planning and how you build a team is done in the summer training camp, all the things you want to work in our way to build a team that's sustainable and that can win.
I just absolutely love that final part there where he says when the planning and the type of roster changes and the different things you build on are done in the off season, that's how you build sustainable winning teams, not band-aiding with smaller trades that create more issues than they solve, right? And I think people need to relax with demanding trades because ultimately they don't actually understand the mechanics of how a locker room is. And the people on the ground know the pulse of the locker room, know exactly what's going on in the locker room, and psychoanalyzing from the outside, I think, is just a thing that's not feasible. It never has been feasible. And people acting like it is feasible have their own motives and their own agendas. But I do not want to get into any of that creator politicking stuff. I just want to stick to what's the truth and what I see and keep it as is like that and continue to learn my own basketball knowledge, hopefully helping other people learn their basketball knowledge. So let's get into it. Let's dive deep. Enjoy. So, where we last left off, Thaddeus was traded to Indy, and this is the start of the 2016-2017 season where he's 28 years old. So, it's starting to come into his prime a bit more, right? Right? But based on the early wear and tear, he's hitting his prime early, where I think his health starts to become an issue after that a little bit more than it has been, where he's been showing Iron Man skills, right? So that's where I said kind of don't blame it on him on the backside. But let's continue on. We've talked about it, right? So 28 years old, Indiana power forward still, yeah. 74 games played, 74 games started. So started a lot of games. Played 30.2 minutes, which is a lot for definitely a contending team. So you could definitely tell these statistics are probably going to be a lot better considering the talent he's playing with, like Paul George and all those type of guys that was on that team at the moment. I'm not going to go into everybody because I think the focus is that, and I need to continue to focus on what's important and try to leave a little bit of the extra stuff off the table. So let's go. So 9.3 field goal attempts. So less than he was shooting in Brooklyn, but I think more evenly slotted out. And you can see his field goal percentage move up higher, right? So now he's in the over 500 club in a sense of when he went to work on his post game when we talked about it, it's definitely showing fruit now in his prime years, right? Putting in that work early has made him even better when he's supposed to be his best, right? And I think ultimately we need to weigh that in and understand when the player is supposedly going to hit their peak, and doing early stuff doesn't take away from that peak. It adds to that peak because those players that have these natural talents will increase naturally. It's the other stuff, right? The other stuff that you have to train your body to do that you're not naturally good at. And I think we need to look at that and see a lot of characteristics in that sense where he came in as a pesky defender, kind of athletic a bit, but has really carved out his game and worked on the skills that translate in later years and translate to winning in general, right? So ultimately, okay, they're starting to incorporate that three ball a little bit more, at least giving him an opportunity to stroke it a bit and for them, other teams to respect it. And now it's like up again, right? And it's also, they're not closing out on him. If Paul George, they're closing out Paul George and he kind of swings the ball to Thad, he has a free shot, right? That's the understanding of role dynamic. And before, obviously, he was looking to push main stuff, right? But now being rolled properly, not as a main, has given him the ability to really thrive in his position, right? And I think that's ultimately key too, though. Understanding the player and understanding the limitations, right? There are limitations, but that doesn't have to define you as a player. It's not your limitations. It's the things that you build, the things that you work on, the things that make you who the player you are. Everyone starts off at different points, but it's who puts in the most work by the time when it really matters that are going to win, right? And be great. Because winning equals greatness. There is no losing and still being great. Unfortunately, that's how things work, right? And being realistic with things, yes, okay, it's fair to be realistic, but at the same time, you have to understand that all these players are always continuously evolving and growing as players. And there are very few actual limitations to each person's game based on what they can work on and change. There are things that can't be changed, and I think Masai's keyed in on what he can and cannot change. So I think being optimistic and knowing what's able to be changed gives you an idea of how that player looks, and you're able to imagine them fully formed if you understand those key points of everything that we're kind of been encapsulating in the Raptors developing value series. And I think Thad's three-pointer is a kind of microcosm of that story a bit, of putting a player in position to be the best he can when he's his best, right? So, okay, let's continue. So less twos, because I think there's a lot more action, right? There's a lot more other guys that can definitely get things done, but there's less attention on him. So his like field goal percent has definitely gone up way higher than it has been in the previous years, right? Let's continue on. Free throws still a big, massive issue. Not getting too many foul calls now, though. They're not. They don't have a chance to mob them because you can't foul if you're not there, right? There's also an aspect of that too, being there, being at the spot, right? Like, there's a difference between nobody in the range and a guy getting an open shot, or anyone closing out in the right time when they're setting up for the shot can throw off their rhythm and change the shot dynamics. So it's about timing and not necessarily about even physicalness or tallness or having the ability to touch the ball, right? To stop it. There's also different methods, right? And understanding those two is very key. And I think veterans and IQ guys really show those type of skills, right? All right, offensive and defensive rebounding, total rebounds, decent, not what it was in Brooklyn, right? I think different positioning. Maybe he's asked to be a little bit different on this team because they've identified what he's better at, and mushing in the post maybe is not the best utilization of his skills as a great defender as he is, right? So assists down a bit. Obviously, he's not going to have as many opportunities to have the ball in his hands, not as a main creator anymore. That's fine. That's fine. Everyone has their role, and everyone needs to understand that a team is a bunch of individual peoples collectively banding into roles to succeed, right? So blocks, okay, 04. So this defense is still kind of stable. It's always been stable. We've seen that. You've seen that. His defense has always kind of really been solid throughout the years. Still positive playmaking, so we're definitely seeing he's turned a corner completely. There's no shades of the other years of really terrible assist to turnover ratio. He's really come around and really built that skill out completely, almost on his own, in a sense, with different coaches and different game plans, and he's just kind of worked on it himself in a sense and really just took in the information and built his game up from every opportunity that he could probably get, right? 11 points, okay. His shots, the less shots, but more efficient, right? It's about being effective, efficient buckets, right? And there are also role dynamics where he has other guys able to do the similar things he is, so he gets secondary defenders in a lot of similar actions that he was before getting primary defenders as the main tank commander, and then Minnesota, who knows, Brooklyn, doing a whole bunch of different things. But now on a proper team, he's able to kind of slot in appropriately. Let's see what his playoff role looks at the year, right? So looks like they got swept or he didn't play all the games. Okay, whatever. Besides the point, we're looking at Thad here, right? So games played 4, games started 4, 35 minutes. See, minutes always go up in the playoffs for your starters. And it's like you're running them like like what, like three quarters of the marathon, and then expect them to just magically get tempoed up for that last quarter in the final, what, 10 games of the season, of the 10 games they play that season, right? Like, it doesn't make sense. So obviously Masai and the office have keyed in on something like this and are in the process of working different things out in order to make sure that we're properly geared up for playoff basketball, not season basketball. You can get good at the season. We've seen that. We've seen what happens. We got good at the season every year, and then the playoffs. In these years, right, we got swept in the second round with no fuss, no hassle, right? So let's continue on, but keep things in context because they were also facing LeBron, right, in the same East. So it's not necessarily that these teams were, because Indy did really well, not gonna lie, in a sense of battling things out, right, and trying to get there. But okay, let's just continue straight on now. So 35 minutes, yeah, we talked about the minutes. All right. So 9.8. So higher. So they're gonna be keying up on Paul George. So he's gonna get, but see, look, oh, nice. The post work he put in the other years definitely showing out. Three ball, yeah, not really there, but he's not being pressured enough to have to chuck like he was in the previous time that he was in the playoffs the other year, remember? Or during the season, sorry, just so many stats. um, okay, so twos looking really solid, right? Really solid. Really solid. So free throws, okay, yeah, still an issue. And look, Hackathad was in effect a bit here, I think. His free throw attempts go up when they hack, right? So, and he's not sinking enough of them. So that's definitely a way to attack the Pacers offense in a sense, stall them out by when Thad has the ball, hack him up, make him go to the line, maybe gets one, maybe gets two, but it's better than Paul George kind of attacking and doing what he does, right? So let's continue on. Offensive ribs. Whoa, whoo, holy sheesh. He's really he's a battler in the playoffs and like really solid, obviously looking to get more opportunities and looks like he really had a great role. And these are some of his probably best playoff years, definitely, even though the team didn't make it far. But you could see that Thad is definitely putting in that work, right? So steals 2.0, so higher than the season, right? But minutes, we got to understand how minutes kind of skew the numbers up, right? So 0.3 blocks, okay, so maybe they're asking him to be more perimeter heavy, right? Right? So he's still showing through on his defense, right? It's always kind of been showing through, right? And obviously turnover to assist ratio now in the positive direction, a full 1.0 assist on. So he's coming into his playmaking kind of prime. He's definitely got that settled in now. He's definitely has chops, right? What we say like playmaking chops. So personal fouls, okay, 2.8, okay. Yeah, just similar type of stuff regarding defense and fouling and all that kind of stuff. 12.0, okay. Okay. Yeah, a little bit more shots, so he's going to have another point. So it looks like he's shown consistency. This is what it's about. They want to see that you're going to provide what they expect every time. It's not about providing everything all the time. It's about providing what you provide every time in a sense. And that's the players that get paid. It's not based on how much you can do as the same as this person. It's how consistent you are at the things that you do and how valuable are those skills ultimately in the whole landscape. So we need to understand players, there's a million different ways to be good in basketball. The 3-point line was made specifically so shorter players could play the game. The ABA had an issue where the NBA got all the tall talent and the game was only about height, and Wilt and all those crazy 7-footers ruled the game, right? But the ABA needed to find a way to make the game more competitive with shorter guys that weren't coming, like, weren't fantastic to play in that NBA system. So they made the 3-point line to give shorter guys an opportunity to equalize the game out, right? So height isn't the be all end all anymore. It's about skill and utilizing the rules of the game to your advantage and making more correct decisions. And I think ultimately that takes a long time to be to the point where you're making most the correct decisions and less incorrect decisions. And the team that limits the mistakes usually wins. No matter what talent you have, whatever, the team that doesn't make mistakes will win. That's the simplisticness of basketball fundamentals and not needing hyper ultra crazy superstars. You need guys like Thad to be consistent in their role to support your superstar talents in their role. And that's how a team functions. Not like blaming one guy for not being another guy. It's about being who you are and trusting the GM and the owners got the right people in place and have the right plan in order to make things work. So let's continue on to Thad's 29. Well, when he was 29 years of age in the 2017-2018 season. So we laid the indie groundwork where they're kind of at, what his role is a bit. Let's now hyper look at just the stats and keep it more focused now. So 81 games played, 81 games started. Obviously, we said that here. So I'm just gonna start going quicker, right? So 32 minutes played. So decent, right? They up in his role 10.7. So they upped his yeah, okay, minutes, but games play. Obviously, he was a more important piece this year. So yeah, um, with more attention, more threes, a lower clip, but still respectable, right? More two shots, okay, okay, lesser, because they're seeing how effective that is. Once you prove you're effective, people are gonna start guarding you, like Draymond said to Siakam, that's a guy now. You like a guy means like a guy you have to guard. You can't just let him do whatever he wants, right? So, uh, free throws still working on it. Rebounds similar, nice, decent, okay, yeah. Assists 1.9 up a little bit more, maybe having a couple more touches per game, really kind of having options to do a couple more different things. 1.7 steals. Okay, nice. Up from last year, so it's still giving you that defense, right? Turnovers 1.3, so positive from assists. Bigger positive than last year, but still showing the good trends of positive playmaking, right? So he has a playmaking bag, right? 2.2 fouls. Okay. Defense, yeah. 11.8. See, it's harder. It's harder because increasing his shots will just increase the type of the defenders he gets, and he's not at that kind of level. So it's ultimately harder to increase his role. And ultimately, this was the final year of the kind of Paul George Indiana Pacers because in the summer, that's when he got traded to OKC, and they decided to go with young Miles Turner and Sabonis. And so let's continue on to the playoffs and see how the final playoffs went for Paul George and the Pacers. So 7 games played, 7 games started. So, tough. Okay, man. 33 minutes played. So lessening minutes. They're understanding kind of there's a ceiling to how much you can play Thad a bit, unfortunately, right? Field goal attempts Lower, yeah, but higher percentage. Okay, so they're adjusting to how Thad needs to kind of play. Let's see what that breakdown looks like. So threes still meh, right? Playoffs not really looking for him to hit that three ball, but he's gonna shoot it there if it's there, but mainly he's gonna look to make another play if they're fronting, right? Now with the passing, he doesn't have to really push the skill that he hasn't developed out because he didn't get the chance early to really cement the three into his game and really make it part of who he is, which you see Masai really doing with a lot of guys now, right? So, okay, let's continue on though. So his 2 pointers, oh, okay, looking really good here. 6-4-2, nice, nice, really nice. Free throws, man. Frig. There's something not. Maybe, I don't know, man. I'm just. Free throws, he's not a free throw guy, clearly. Clearly. The trend's just there. It's there. There's enough of a sample size could tell year after year, right? So 3.1 offensive ribs. So he's getting putbacks and stuff, a lot of in the post, kind of really worked his inside game to the point where because he was forced to play there for so long that he had to kind of eventually really put hyper work to the next level of work inside the post with footwork and IQ, like positioning and stuff. It's a whole bunch of different things people don't see. It's like the players see basketball and see chess, but like fans see it and see checkers. We see kings and we think kings really push the game, but it's the uniqueness of each piece and how they're utilized really envelops into a larger strategy that can win you the game more times than most, which is chess, right? So think of it more of chess and less checkers, and I think you'll keep an open mind enough to really grow yourself as a basketball person, right? So that obviously did a bunch of growing throughout his years because it's obviously his job and function. But let's continue on to see how the rest of his prime looks here, in a sense. So total ribs, nice, decent, right? Giving you the goods right there, right? You know what I mean? So assists 1.4, down a bit, right? Down a bit from last year. Okay. Steals down a little bit, more blocks. Okay, so then maybe they're asking him to go more into the post this year. Maybe it's a better position for him if they won more games. See, like there's a difference between that, but I'm trying to focus on that in his development through the years, or I'd normally talk about wins more because that is the purpose of all this, right? All these stats weigh up to nothing if you're not winning games, but I think the development cycle and understanding the eye of what you see and what is viable to help winning players succeed and do better and a mentor. And his years are a direct calculation to what he can provide other people. Going through things yourself gives you that experience. Like Pascal was talking, like he's been through so many things now. He feels really comfortable, but he can only tell the guys what to kind of expect. But someone that has more knowledge can tell them even more what to expect in a sense, and that prepares them even better, right? So there's levels to mentorship, right? And a guy that's really gone through the works and kind of been in every situation has like a clear logical landscape that is like really great. And we're going to continue to dive deeper into that side of Thad's mentor because I think obviously you heard from Masai. It's key, the leadership in the locker room that he brings. This is the type of stuff. He's not going to spend 4 hours the time I'm taking to explain it to you because most people understand most of this stuff like off the bat. Like people in the basketball world, scouts, all these kind of things are really known already and they base a lot of decisions off basketball logic, which I'm trying to kind of bring to the surface a little bit more without having the need to curtail my opinion to anything based other than the truth. My ego won't come into play. What people want me to say won't come into play. I'm just going to continue to give the truth as I see it and continue to be a positive person in this, because I have an interesting story for housekeeping, but it's a really interesting perspective story. But let's continue on. So obviously his playmaking is really solid. Uh Personal fouls, fouling a little bit more. It's common when the playoffs get tighter and harder. Players tend to foul more that can't keep up in a sense in the next level of things, right? But I'm not saying that's about that, but he hasn't had a lot of experience in the second round, and this is actually like his second time in the second round, I think. It's hard to tell, right? So just knowing that, we'll continue on 11.3. And this is all kind of interesting as the final year of the Paul George experiment, because we talked about the kind of shift in talent. And it's funny, CJ Miles was on this 2016-17 playoff roster, and then we kind of got him in the bench mob year, right? We got him for that year, right? And then after that, he's gone in this year. So it's interesting how he was part of some of the first year of Thad in Indiana, and there's a kind of like a Raptors connection-y thing to that. But let's continue on to his final year in Indiana. So obviously this is the Raptors chip year, 2018, 2019. Can't forget it. Great year. Will remember it for the rest of my life, right? 30 years old, dad, right? 81 games. Another 81 games started. This man, he just continues to show that hard hat, lunch pail, come to work no matter what's going on, person and player. And I think that's what some of the team was missing. Like, we allow injuries to happen and stuff when we don't take it too critical, but a guy that has really played a lot of games, a lot of full seasons, has some knowledge about how he prepared for all of this and kind of worked through being available for these games. So health is also an aspect of mentorship that people don't even look at whatsoever. How did he play as many games every year as he could? What's his secrets to cool down, temperature, workouts, different things behind the scenes that really matter to being available, which is the best kind of talent you have in the NBA, is being available to give those consistent other abilities. So without availability, there are no other abilities. So let's continue on. 30 minutes played. Okay. So 10.4 field goal attempts. Okay. Higher up. Okay. So they're having issues with the new kind of like Oladipo and Sabonis. So like I've said before, new things, it takes the time a little bit of time for the league to adjust, but you're gonna see what happens in the playoffs. So let's continue on here. 3-pointers looking league average, nice. See, like, he's starting to really like come into something that he should have came into earlier and been way better. He should have been maybe at a 4-clip guy. You know what I mean? That I think he could have been there with the right work and the right kind of in-game reps and different things, right? Continuing on. Yeah, so his 2-pointers are up. They're having issues trying to figure out the dynamics between Sabonis and Victor and Thad and Turner and all the guys they kind of had at that point, right? So free throws increase, but I'm not gonna champion anything there. We've seen what's happened, and I just that's not good enough in my opinion. He's like LeBron-esque at free throws, and that's not really a good thing. So total rebounds 6.5, same ratio, okay. Assists 2.5, turnovers 1.5. Okay, so they're asking him to play make more with younger guys. That's what tends to happen with younger guys. You can only have them play make so much because the mistakes they make are actually things that kind of detriment into losing. And if you want to be a winning team, which they clearly were at that point, and still made the playoffs this year without Paul George, and still continued to, well, they retooled quick and then took it for a couple of years, and then obviously we see where they're at now. But you can see that there are ebbs and flows to team progression, and it's about sometimes being new at the right window. Like the Raptors conformed a new identity perfect for that moment that no one had a real handle on it yet. So it was able to surprise and attack and do different things and eventually got us the chip. But even Kawhi said it's hard to repeat because now we've seen the playbook. We see what you can do and what you're the best at and where your weaknesses are. And so it's always kind of hard to repeat because you have to kind of reinvent yourself every year in a sense of dynamics. So obviously they had a really new invention this year and it kind of worked a bit. We're going to continue on though, right? So defense, similar as always, right? Personal fouls, similar as always. Asked for a bigger role, okay, but we're not seeing a crazy increase, right? So let's take a look at the playoffs that year. So Indy got muffed in the first round where we went on to higher ambitions. So this year's for us. This is our year, so we can glow on everyone for this year. So 4 games played, 4 games started, 32 minutes played, 10 field goal attempts. So they're asking him to do more now that PG's gone and the less playoff experience is on the roster because you can see it works out during the regular season. You can win a tons of games by relying on older vets that know things, but ultimately the playoffs is about skill and IQ. It's both. It's both. It's not just one or the other. It's it's like the athletic ability in in an IQ body, and that's where LeBron dominated the playoffs for so many years because he understood that. That's what it's about. He doesn't understand how to get to that point, but he understands that himself enough and understands what it takes, right? So it's both sides, but Thad unfortunately didn't develop both sides appropriately enough to have forward great progression. And those kind of ruts and those kind of development failures help us too. It's not just about who succeeded, it's also about who knows the failures and can kind of warn them appropriately and say, hey, don't be me, don't be this guy, or don't be that guy. That's how it kind of works a little bit too with the mentoring and just pointing out maybe someone that hasn't done something and point out what happened to them, like using the logic that I'm doing right here. Right. So let's continue. The playoff, obviously, they got solved by the end of the year, and this is kind of the kind of consequence, a sweep. Yep. All right, so let's continue on. They keyed up on him. Thad was the only guy that was able to kind of play playoff basketball at that moment, I think, right? So 8.5, 2-pointers, lower again. He's getting primaried like hard because you can put your secondary defenders on your other guys if you're maining them and they're not that good. Like it's you set defense to appropriate levels and balance out your kind of defensive strengths, right? Like weak side, strong side in football and stuff. You put your best guy on your best guy, but if they don't have a best guy, you have your best guy on their worst guy, and that leaves your best guy to kind of eat everywhere else too. So it's also about kind of playing with the defense of the other team by rolling in different lineups that have to make them make hard decisions on who's guarding who, right? But ultimately, without Paul George there, it's easy to understand who the main defender is going to get on if Thad's showing the only kind of effective gameplay in the kind of games that they're playing, right? So free throws up a bit more. Okay, maybe he's in the shop working on it. I don't know. I'm not going to trumpet anything there. Like I said, 7 total rebounds, still coming good with the solid up the rebounds from the season. So obviously he pushes more effort and definitely puts more emphasis on completing possessions and doing different things that are these are the stats that entail winning, but they don't ultimately determine winning in a sense of how everything fits together and how every role is kind of supported. Because no matter what, based on the rules, there are going to be positions in a sense of roles. They don't have to claim them as a center or something, but you need a rim protecting guy that's big to stop everyone from driving to the net. It's just the way the game is played based on the rules, and that's how the positions were fashioned out in a sense of trying to kind of cement the roles a little bit and try to show people how kind of different things are done regarding basketball and their positions. But now in a positionless game, we want to kind of throw away the labels, but understand the roles are still there. We still need a rim protector. We still need a kind of fast big guy that can help the center, aka power forward, and then you can go down the line and kind of figure out what's going on, right? So let's continue on. Assists 3.8, so a lot of playmaking because obviously the younger guys are less experienced and have less options. So if they have the tape on what your younger guys like to go to, it's easy to take it away. So you're going to rely on older guys that have more versatile bag and options to kind of make the right play and still not push with it outside of themselves because they are in an appropriate kind of role that they understand. So steals, woo, his best steal. That's what that bold means. His career high playoff steals is 2.8, and it was that year of year 30. So obviously his best attribute hits best when he is the best. So they were still pumping that D, which is nice. So, whoa. What? Is that a 2.5 positive ratio on assists to turnovers? Wow. Holy jeez. Woo. All right. So he's really showing off the playmakings and everything, man. Woo. 2.5 personal fouls. Okay. Woo. So it's not, he didn't even like increase his personal fouls in a sense. They kept him fine, but still jacked his steals up ridiculously. But that's what happens with 4 game sample size. Sometimes like your best moments kind of weigh out onto a stat line that looks different than most years. But we got to understand it's 4 game sample size, so this increased, but understanding it's playoff basketball, right? You only have so many games to play playoff basketball. It's a certain type of way that playoff basketball is played. And we all know it shifts, and we act like it doesn't shift. And there are different things that are required in the playoffs because of the way the game is played and how conservatively and possessions are valued in the playoffs. So 10.5 points, probably not good enough. Getting main defenders and stuff. Oy. So we're going to go on to his next place in a sense and queue up the kind of pre-finale in a sense before the finale in part 4. So, as you can see, we don't have too many years to go over, but I think I want to make this the episode where we cement the skills, and then the finale is where you see all of it transfer into who and who's learning what from Thad. And I'm gonna do something really interesting for the finale, but the pre-finale will definitely build a lot of the groundwork onto, so the finale doesn't have to be like 2 hours or something crazy. So you can see some of what's gonna happen in the pre-finale, a little bit of a Raptors connection. Interesting enough, but obviously after Indiana, they weren't they were going younger, right? Different age timeline. The Bulls had cap space and signed Thad, right? So he goes on to Chicago with Zach LaVine. Interestingly enough, who we pinned in as on the team in the Wolves, and this might have been like LaVine asking for Thad. This is a guy that could really help us change what we're doing right now. And interesting enough, maybe that's part of it. That's my own kind of wild speculation theory, but we'll definitely go over it, right, in the kind of part 4 pre-finale. But now it's time for housekeeping. All right, I want to first thank the real ones, obviously, with the support, comments, likes, the feedback really helps. I know Van Hoot was really giving me a lot of solid different things to think about regarding my content and helping me kind of word out some of my own ideas and kind of have a little bit of deeper thought on it. If you have any suggestions, I'm all ears, all the time. You know what I mean? I'm open to hearing anything. But sometimes I'll use things and sometimes I won't. That's just how it is, right? So ultimately, I want to also say salute Raptors Freak Nation, Raptors Freak Lex, constantly, almost every time I'm in chat, shouting me out and really has been a key piece to where I'm at today and really the formation and kind of helping me adjust a lot of the ideas and themes I really want to capture with the positivity and but with the critical eye and bring in the Raptors history and kind of have everything the package that the real ones would want to kind of listen to. So 9:30 a.m. Eastern, Raptors Freak channel. Lex will continue to be there and continue to do his thing every day. But ultimately, I think it was really hard because I know I've kind of pushed up this kind of Project Truth, but Project Truth doesn't have to be all me or all fast all the time. Results are gonna take forever. This is a slow process. I'm in for the long haul. I know that it will take a lot of time for process or Project Truth to really capture the 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 fan base as a whole. But I think just continuing to talk about the truth and have people listen is the message and the purpose of what I think I want this channel to be, and just to continue to just learn. My ego is definitely not bigger than the truth. If I get something wrong, I'm ready to admit it. And so that leaves me not having to stand on hills to die on when they're wrong and forcing myself to become negative about other players, which I've seen a lot of lately. And it really affected me a little bit because unfortunately, sometimes when you stare into the abyss stares back at you. So when you're kind of taking note of what trolls are saying and always kind of in that kind of negative mind space, it can kind of warp your perspective of the team. So ultimately, this is the interesting story. When I decided to kind of turn my devices off for a couple of days, I just kind of want to detach and like kind of refresh the page. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to refresh to who you are and kind of let the other stuff fall by the wayside. And I was kind of like, sometimes I'll put on like a movie I've seen like a billion times, and I just happen to put on Lord of the Rings. And it's funny enough, when the Lord of the Rings kind of, I heard about the Rings of Power, the new series and stuff, I let people change my perspective on it, where they were saying, "Oh, there's all these different colored people and they're not even using the right stories and nothing's factually accurate," and they were just kind of slamming something really badly, and it like kind of made me not want to watch it. But watching the old movies kind of got me in this mode where I was like, screw it, I've seen these movies so many times, I know what's going to happen, let's continue more about the story, because I do know the background of the books and what's changed from the movies. And I'm kind of a deep diver in a sense of everything I like. I like to learn everything about everything I like. But ultimately, ultimately, I enjoyed the Rings of Power, and I thought those things that people were talking about really made it worse, but it didn't. I enjoyed it. There was nothing that seemed out of place for me. I I actually enjoyed it, and I'm kicking myself because I let people kind of warp my perspective on things in a different kind of way to have a negative view when it's their own self that mainly has the negative view kind of stapled in their mind and thinking that's how you're supposed to talk about things, I guess, as a critic. But as a critic myself here, I'm criticizing the Raptors and what they're doing and stuff, and we always have to be critical of the things that we're saying because people can take them and kind of run with them, and it creates a mind of their own, like the kind of slanderers of the Lord of the Rings new series about female dwarves and all this kind of different crap that was ultimately didn't really affect the outcome of the film and my enjoyment. So don't let the negativity kind of eat you alive in the sense of what you think about this team. Just watch the game, key in on the things that Masai keys in on. Everyone keys on in the basketball world because they understand no one's ever going to be able to play the game perfect. There's always going to be room to get better, and no one's going to be the best at everything they do. And that's just the way things are. And having reasonable expectations and not warped ones in a sense of letting other people tell you what to think can keep you from feeling negative about different things. Like, I'm still very high on this season, to be honest. I told you the roadmap. It's looking like the Wizards sweep moment at this time of recording, and we're going to come out eventually, I believe. If we don't, then it's almost like we held on to the Wizards sweep series year and kind of didn't push past that wall. And the summer was kind of a failure, and that's okay. You plan for the best, but you be critical about the results and be fair and truthful. That's all that matters, being fair and truthful. Don't add any of your tinge biases and warp people's enjoyment of this team. And that's where I think real ones are kind of tired of it and want to hear the truth. And Project Truth will continue on with the growth and truth and trust in Messiah and understand that he has the best view of the whole team at this moment. And some of the decisions, yes, he's going to make wrong ones, but a lot of the decisions he's going to make are right. And just pointing out the few wrong decisions doesn't take away from all the positive decisions that Masai and things Fred VanVleet does on the court. But ultimately, I just want to salute the real ones. Logical Raptors fanatic out. Mike G. Mic drop.